Welcome to the Live Up Podcast, where we rewatch the movies from our youth to see if they live up. Quick note on how this will go. We will review, discuss, and score the movie in question to see if it lives up to us as adults and whether it lives up to kids today. I'm Jess Latterman.
And I'm Amanda Treat. On today's episode, our annual holiday specials review begins with a Charles Dickens-based classic. To quote another Dickens novel, it was the best of Bill Murray. It was the worst of Bill Murray. Today we're reviewing 1988's Scrooged. Jess, what is your history with Scrooged?
So first of all, I was wondering where you were going with that for a Dickens quote. So I like where you went.
You know, good. A Tale of Two Cities is also a great movie, just not very Christmassy. More like
not so much
decapitation-y.
Yeah, little murdery.
Lot of murdery.
Yeah, although we're okay with murdery Christmas movies. We reviewed Die Hard.
That's true.
So my history with this. So I think it was on heavy rotation in my house. I'm almost sure there was a censored version playing on repeat on TBS around this time, like Christmas break time. I don't think I've seen it as much as Die Hard, but like maybe close a lot. I was a fan of this movie before I was even aware that it was based on a book by Charles Dickens called A Christmas Carol. Okay. I possibly because I just wasn't as aware of Christmas stuff, or there are others in our generation who aren't as ignorant as I. So either explanation, choose your own adventure. But that is my history with this movie. I think in previous episodes, we've demonstrated that I tended to gravitate towards Bill Murray type humor. Maybe you not so much. We'll see how this goes. But what is your history with this?
I've seen this a few times, but it wasn't canon in our household. It was not on that magical VHS cassette we had where we taped all the Christmas movies off of television and then watched it in a loop like 3 times a day until my mother started screaming at us from like the tinnitus that Rudolph's nose was causing, the little noise. Yeah. She'd like worst. Lose her mind around 5 o'clock every night. Like, stop playing that. But Scrooged was not a part of that. Unlike you, I had seen Mickey's Christmas Carol before I saw this, and I probably had seen other versions of A Christmas Carol. So by the time I watched this, I was like, oh, and there's ghosts, and he's a jerk. Okay, I get it. It's A Christmas Carol, but different.
I even think later I possibly embarrassed myself at times when there's been other, whether it's like versions or references to Christmas Carol, and I'm like, oh, like the Scrooge movie. And it's like, oh, no, you idiot.
Which was based on a classic piece of literature.
Right. Yeah. No, was not aware.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'd seen it. It isn't canon for the Treat family, but that's okay. Neither was Die Hard. So, and we did like ourselves some Die Hard last year.
We did, because it's a great movie.
So, Jess, would you like to give everyone a plot summary of A Christmas Carol and Scrooged?
Both at once, my God. So we love class warfare on this podcast, and it's been a while since we've had one of these movies. We get to watch a classic rich asshole get scared shitless into changing his ways. Bill Murray's character Frank gets visited by 3 increasingly unhinged ghosts as this movie makes a 1980s comedy out of a classic Dickens tale. Even if Kid Me did not know it was a classic Dickens tale, that's fine. Dickens, but make it 1980s comedy. That's where we are.
All right. Well, in doing a little bit of research for this movie, my favorite thing that I came across regarding this movie is they began filming it in December of 1987. And when director Richard Donner, who I think this might be the first movie we've reviewed of his, but he did Goonies, he did Lethal Weapon, he did a lot of the 80s movies. So, he's part of our childhood here.
For sure. Yeah.
So
we got to do Lethal Weapon at some point, but all right.
Richard Donner went to Paramount, who produced this, and said, hey, I know we're on a tight filming schedule, but can the crew and the actors have Christmas Day off? And Paramount said, no.
Really?
Which fits right in line with the whole plot of this movie. So what Richard Donner did was when they wrapped on Christmas Eve, he fired everybody and said, go home. And then on the morning of the 26th, he rehired the entire crew and all the actors back. And
that's brilliant.
Going. Yeah.
He was basically Santa Claus.
he gave everybody a Christmas day with their families rather than succumbing to the executives at Paramount who really could have just been part of this movie at that point. Like,
That's amazing.
the whole, it's ridiculous.
Oh,
So
that's so good.
points already for Richard Donner, who may have won this film.
Yeah, yeah, just for that. And screw you, Paramount.
Yeah, what the hell? So, meanwhile, this is Bill Murray's return to acting after taking 4 years off after the success of Ghostbusters.
He took 4 years off.
4 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, I think just the success of that just overwhelmed everybody. They weren't expecting Ghostbusters to be that crazy. So the marketing for this movie, Scrooged, was Bill Murray is back among the ghosts, only this time it's 3 against 1.
Nice. I like that. That's good. Good job, marketing team of the 80s.
Yeah, that's actually points to Paramount's marketing team.
Yeah,
despite your executives making everyone work on Christmas.
Yeah, even if your bosses are assholes, you guys wrote some good copy. I like it.
Mm-hmm. So Murray, being Bill Murray, hated working on this movie, didn't like the final result. I mean, we get this throughout his career.
God.
He gets in fights with directors, even the ones he's close friends with. Richard Donner described Bill Murray as superbly creative, but occasionally difficult. And it sounds like they didn't enjoy working together at all.
That a press person wrote that. And
yeah,
because he was like, fuck that guy.
Yeah, he's like holding it in. Like, I need the success of Bill Murray to carry this movie, but this guy. So Bill Murray showed up. He asked for script changes. And this is a script written by Michael O'Donoghue and Mitch Glazer, who both worked on Saturday Night Live with Bill Murray. So they know each other. They also pulled in, I love this, they got Elaine May, who, I mean, famous comedian. She's the one who wrote the script for The Birdcage.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, she's awesome. She did an uncredited rewrite on the script with Bill Murray's request, and she did it in one night. She went up and doctored the whole thing, added a lot more of the Karen Allen character, Claire, to it. Like,
can never have enough Karen Allen, as we've discussed on this podcast.
Love Elaine May. Love that she put more Karen Allen into this film.
Had to be done.
Despite all this, Bill Murray, once again, didn't read the script and didn't stick to it. So
he's such an asshole.
He's such an ass. So everything, especially at the end, from the moment he kisses that solid gold dancer and then breaks the fourth wall and is talking to the audience, like, he just went and did his own thing. None of that's in the script. And the two writers were watching from the side of the taping and we're just like, what the fuck is he doing?
That has to hurt so much.
It does, because I pulled up the original 1988 script for this that the two of them had wrote before it got doctored and everything. And the bit that they put in there is actually genuinely heartfelt. And there's all these, like, almost like in Ghostbusters where they're cutting around the city and seeing everybody coming together. And there's something about, like, the cops giving homeless people buckets of KFC because there's product placement all over this movie.
Of course.
And yeah, just how the people are reacting at home and just lots of warm, fuzzy things. And I think probably would have been almost like a little bit too sugary maybe, but like, yeah, Bill Murray just wasn't having any of it. So we didn't do that.
You can't have a sugary Bill Murray. Like, it's just not going to work.
It wasn't his character being sugary, but yeah, it was the end of the movie. It was going to be much sweeter and uplifting. And you got a Bill Murray ending here.
Yeah, I think you and I have differed before on Bill Murray's kind of style, but yeah, we'll see how this plays out throughout the episode.
All right, so diving right in, we love to talk about films actor by actor, character by character. Sometimes we go chronologically, but I think most of our listeners know the story of A Christmas Carol. So let's talk about Bill Murray's character is Frank Cross. Right on the nose there with that name, but
very
whatever.
On the nose.
He is the Ebenezer Scrooge of this movie.
Yeah, and we should say he's also, the Ebenezer Scrooge is a television exec from a fictional network called IBC in the 80s, because there's only then a few, so super high powered. And I think it's Christmas Eve, right?
They're leading up to a big television special they're going to be playing live on Christmas Eve. That happens to be a bunch of celebrities reenacting A Christmas Carol, and that there's a lot of silliness involved with that, which is great. But
yeah, it's great. I love the show within a show, and the whole movie opens with a fake Santa shootout scene, which is part of a promo, and then they're in an executive meeting, and Frank, Bill Murray's character, is very upset because they're not promoting the Christmas Carol the way he wants. He wants everything to be sensationalized, like Santa having a shootout and all that shit.
Violent, scary Christmas Carol.
Yeah, and all the executives are like, but that's not in the show. And as someone who has spent her career in television, I genuinely laugh so hard at this scene because this is basically prescient for what television becomes. It's like, it's completely sensationalized. Some shit that goes in the promo didn't ever happen. You always embellish it. And I feel like you could kind of almost see this from almost a 30 Rock perspective. Alec Baldwin character in 30 Rock, like that is Frank Cross. That is Bill Murray. And I swear to God, I would not be surprised if some of the character that Alec Baldwin played has got to be based on Frank Cross. It's just so similar.
They did do a 30 Rock version of A Christmas Carol, but it was set to Leap Day. Do you remember the Leap Day Williams episode?
So genius.
Where
so genius.
Alec Baldwin's character did see ghosts, and like the ghost of Leap Day Future. Or no, God, it was Leap Day Williams toured him through the whole thing, but the future vision he saw was his daughter doing Habitat for Humanity, and that was where he like lost his mind.
Hilarious. This has nothing to do with Frank Cross, but I thought the scripting did such a good job of parodying the television industry, possibly at the time, but it still holds true today, and it's so funny to me.
It opens with all of these promos for their Christmas Eve programming on this station, and it's increasingly more ridiculous. It starts at the North Pole, and then the North Pole's getting attacked by terrorists, and it's the $6 million man who swoops in and saves the day, but since we have, and we'll put a link to this, the original script from 1988 was trying to make it a Chuck Norris Christmas special. And so it was supposed to be funny. Chuck Norris with like a bunch of catchphrases and like roundhouse kicking people, and he's got a machine gun. It's just, and so clearly funny. They couldn't get him to agree to be in this movie, like parodying himself. So they got the $6 million man instead. But then the Robert Goulet Magical Christmas with the alligators in the swamp, like that is exactly what they put in the script. And I'm so glad Robert Goulet was like, yeah, I would love to do that.
But what's also funny is that they have a Leave It to Beaver parody, and they just call it Father Loves Beaver.
Yes, and that's not in the script, but that's so funny.
I laughed so hard because I did not remember that as a kid.
No,
but
they probably cut that out of your version.
Or maybe in the TBS version it's not in there. I was like, this A is just like 30 Rock, and B, it is still funny.
It reminded me, because I'd forgotten all of these fake promos were in there, but if
so
you go back and watch Tropic Thunder, they have all those fake movie trailers that they just slid right in with the real movie trailers when you saw it in the theater. And they just get increasingly more ridiculous. And I loved that so much. So that was a hilarious way to begin this movie. And then cutting to the boardroom and having Bill Murray's character, Frank, be like, this sucks, I hate it. It sets off the whole tone really well. It puts you in a place where you've just seen something very funny, and then you've just seen how cranky Frank Cross, a.k.a. Bill Murray, is.
Oh, yeah, and he's like
reacting
to
funny things. Yeah.
And I personally love unhinged Bill Murray. I think unhinged Bill Murray is really funny, whether he's sticking to the script or not. He's yelling at people. His hair's crazy. He wants more fire in the Christmas promos. I love it. I appreciate him for that humor. I don't know if you're the same. And I think that Bill Murray has this knack for being an asshole and charming at the same time. What I really liked about his character is that as soon as Claire, the Karen Arlen character, gets on screen, or he remembers her, this is more Ghost of Christmas Past, he does soften immediately, and I believe it. I'm kind of in on how you get that he loves her, and you also get that he is a huge dick.
Much like Groundhog Day, we are starting this film off with the worst Bill Murray.
Yes,
and the question is, can we get to a better Bill Murray? Or in Groundhog's Day case, maybe the best case scenario Bill Murray. So yeah, let's see if we get there.
Yeah, and one funny note that I thought, because I had watched Groundhog Day with the kids when we did that episode. Listeners, it's a fun episode. Go listen. Isaac was like, my 7-year-old was like, hey, he's the guy who steps in the puddle from that movie. So he remembered the Ned Ryerson scene.
Excellent.
And how he always steps in the puddle. So, I felt like a good parent at that moment.
Yeah. Nice job, Isaac.
Yeah, and nice job us for having him watch that movie. So
So Frank Cross, he's claiming he's, the youngest executive ever at this network. He is going out of his way to be a bigger jerk than necessary. Like, he has his assistant Grace, who's the
oh
Bob
my God,
Cratchit
I love
character.
her.
He rips up her kid's drawing because he doesn't think it's good enough. And when this trailer that he cuts with the machine guns and all the things that are not in A Christmas Carol end up killing one of the viewers from like a heart attack and
Oh,
shock,
that's right.
he's so happy about it. Like, oh, the ratings will be great. Like, just completely heartless.
Yeah.
So they give you just this over the top awful person. So we're going from there.
We are. And I was sort of like, I would be cool with a version of this movie with Grace, his assistant, like totally murdering him at the end because he's such a jerk.
Yeah. I mean,
there's a Halloween version of this that maybe.
All right. So Frank's love interest in this movie is Claire Phillips, played by Karen Allen, who we love, love, love on this podcast. She is the equivalent of the Bella character from A Christmas Carol, but she actually gets a much bigger part, which is nice. And apparently
Good call.
That was part of the Elaine May rewrite, and
good job, Elaine.
Partially a request by Bill Murray to try to give that character more backstory. So she walks into the TV studio and she is just beaming with her huge Karen Allen smile, and it just brings so much heart into this movie where there was previously none. I love the part where they're discussing whether they're going to staple some reindeer antlers onto a mouse, and she immediately threatens to call the Humane Society. Because I have worked on sets where people are suggesting kind of abusing animals, which is not going to get you that no animals were harmed in the making of this film thing in the credits.
Yeah, having done a fair share of Animal Planet productions and promo shoots, yeah. A lot of times where you have American Humane on set for that. This is where, I swear to God, this is such a prescient movie about these things. It's so funny. And there's a whole other side tangent, which we could talk to another point, where the Frank Cross's boss wants to make television for pets at home.
I'm
that.
Like,
oh my God, it's like,
that's your job.
It was my job for 8 years, and it could have been an early ad for YouTube, I swear to God. Anyway, very prescient movie. Love Claire. She's like the innocent in this. And Frank Cross calls her because he freaks out because he sees the ghost of his former boss who comes to visit him and warn him and say, you're going to be visited by 3 ghosts tomorrow. I think, no, the ghost calls Claire. And then when he hears her answering machine, he like immediately picks up the phone and like leaves a message about how he's freaking out. And then she shows up on set. You're totally right. As soon as she shows up, she is the heart. And if folks, we have reviewed her before when we did Raiders of the Lost Ark. We're big fans of Karen Allen. Mm-hmm. She's really wonderful on screen. She's funny. She immediately softens Bill Murray. And we talked about her in our Groundhog Day episode because
we could have used her in Groundhog Day.
I cannot stand Andie MacDowell. She is like my movie kryptonite. And I was like, listen, Andie MacDowell is no Karen Allen, because Karen Allen could be in a scene with Bill Murray and it's still funny and heartfelt at the same time.
Yeah.
Take notes, Andy.
I don't think the two of them are competing for parts anymore, but
probably
never were, honestly.
Because Karen Allen is better. That's why.
So one of the things I really like that she does in this movie is they do the flashback with the ghost of Christmas past, and you get to see sort of the buildup of their relationship, but you understand that Frank had a very dysfunctional childhood. They didn't really celebrate Christmas. His parents were just a hot mess. When they're living together, she's kind of walking him through the traditions of her family, because his family didn't have any. He wants to open all the presents immediately before Christmas. And she says, no, you can open one gift maybe on Christmas Eve, but we open gifts on Christmas. And she's really teaching him the ropes. That this is what holiday cheer is, and this is what is normal for Christmas. And it seems like he's listening, although he's a terrible gift giver. He gives her a thing of knives.
What a dick. Yeah.
That It's always stuck with me. I have friends who are Chinese American, and in their culture, that is a really bad luck sign because
Oh,
it's,
really?
yeah,
Oh,
because
I
it's
didn't know that.
symbolically severing the relationship of whoever you give
Oh,
it to. You also don't give
interesting.
clocks, I've learned.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Good to
I've been
know.
to a number of weddings where it was like, they didn't
No
ask for a
clocks.
knife set. Do not give them a knife set.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Good.
So when I saw
Interesting.
him giving his girlfriend knives, it was just like, ooh, yeah, no, that's symbolically cutting this
Of
part.
course, middle-aged me is like, oh, I could. That's a nice
Yeah,
set of
sharp
knives. I
knives are
mean,
great.
sure.
They seem like they're very sharp.
They seem. I would like that gift.
That's a practical gift.
But she gives him a gift of like a Kama Sutra book, and that that becomes sort of a running joke throughout. I mean, my kids kind of went over their heads. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe not
and
Lily,
that's
but
fine.
that's fine.
That's the part you
Yeah.
turned off in Dracula, but
That's right. Yeah, I was like,
had
oops,
multiple
this-
exposures to the Kama Sutra the past 2 months.
I know. Oh my god.
So when they go to the Ghost of Christmas Future, there is the scene of her in a restaurant, and there's like little orphan waifs at the window, and because of something cutting that Frank said to her, she's suddenly like a rich, rude asshole.
Yeah.
And ignore the orphans, and who cares about people. And that, I know they're over exaggerating the future for him, but that didn't seem like something she would actually do. Like,
Yeah.
Frank doesn't have that much influence over her.
That's a good point.
Versus she has a lot of influence over him some of the time. So that part, I wanted a little something more.
But for that part, though, I, even as a kid, interpreted it this way, is because I'm so pro Karen Allen, perhaps, is that even as a kid, I was like, you can't ruin Claire. Fuck you, Frank. You got to fix that shit. You can't ruin her because we like her. So, and even as an adult watching, I was still sort of feeling that way. I totally agree with you that it's like a little bit of a mismatch.
Yeah.
But I do think that still lands though for, let's say, younger folk today-ish. Don't ruin this girl. She's great.
Yeah. Well, that's actually the other thing. I feel like we missed a scene, or there should have just been an extra scene in the Ghost of Christmas Past. When the two of them meet, you don't really see him win her over. She hits him with a door by accident, and she apologizes, and then she's about to leave, and he's like, how about we go out for Chinese food? And I think a little bit of that scene, seeing how he charmed her, because Claire, honey, you're way too good for him. Way too good for him. I mean, she's probably got people left and right who are like, hey, like Claire, yes.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think kid me did not think that hard about it, and I don't think my kids did either. I should have mentioned I did watch this with both my kids who are 12 and 7. But
and this is PG-13, so that seems okay.
Oh, is it PG-13?
I
think
that's what it said. I mean, they are like chasing people around the studio with a machine gun at the end.
That's
of
a good point.
Yeah,
that
there's
does
some
happen.
Swearing too.
There's some swearing.
And a Karma Sutra. Karma Sutra. But your kids are used to that now.
At this point. I just want to say for the record, I did not have finished Dracula with my 7-year-old. I turned it off and I was like, this
at the
is
Karma
not a good
Sutra
idea. At that precise scene.
No.
Yeah, I was okay with it as a kid, and I was even okay with it now. I think because Bill Murray to me becomes charming around her. I guess you could see the influence on her, and then charming Bill Murray I like, and so you could see the appeal of that on some level. So I didn't need that extra scene, but I do think modern younger folk would need that scene to make that connection. Like you have to make him appealing enough for her to take on this project of a man, because that's essentially what he is.
Yeah. That's, if you look at the book or any of the movie versions of A Christmas Carol, and you're talking 1800s, it's like, okay, Scrooge has his fiance, but back then it was really a like financial contract that you were making with someone, and it was a different vibe. But this, she just seems like such a freewheeling, but also like very strong spirited woman. So it would be nice to see what she sees in him a little bit more. But that's just because Karen Allen's so damn good at this.
So damn good.
I just feel like she is radiating positivity and like Christmas spirit all over this movie. So it's like, ooh, why would you end up with the Scrooge type? You wouldn't, lady. Yeah, I'm overthinking this.
No, but I do think a younger audience would. I mean, I'm not sure. It's not like my kids thought that deeply about the love story, but they kind of liked it. I mean, they were okay with it. Unlike Groundhog Day, where they're just like, what is happening? We don't like, my kids really didn't see the appeal of the romance in that, partly because Andy McDowell sucks. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but I do think like for a younger adult, they need a little bit more.
Yeah.
But for adult me, even watching it again, I kind of didn't, because I
Yeah.
find Bill Murray to be charming as well, which is weird.
Yeah.
Okay, side note, reminding new listeners, I'm the lesbian of the podcast. So,
and I am not, but she's the one
Right.
who likes Bill Murray more than I do. So, we just have these moments.
We do.
All right. Well, in a very Christmas Carol sense of it, there are ghosts in this movie.
There are.
I'm going to rattle them off real quickly, and then let's just talk about them all together. So we have John Forsythe as Lou Hayward, which was Frank's former boss. This is the Marley character that comes to warn him that he's on the wrong path. Then we have musician David Johnson as the ghost of Christmas Past, driving around in a taxi cab this whole movie. Awesome.
Love
Can't wait to
taxi
talk
cab.
about him.
Yeah.
Carol Kane as the ghost of Christmas
Legend.
Present. She's killing it in this movie. It's fantastic. And then we have no idea who is inside the Ghost of Christmas Future, and that's actually every movie version I've ever seen of A Christmas Carol. It's just like it's
just silent,
puppety
right?
thing. Yeah, it just looks like death. This one has a TV for a face, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
So backing up to the Marley character, which is Frank's former boss, Lou Hayward. This scene is actually kind of cool effects-wise, cool. And this is 1988, so it looks like they're actually doing a little bit of computer effects. Like they didn't really
he goes through a window.
That looked really cool. So Lou Hayward gets him by the throat and like forces him through the glass and holds him by the throat, dangling over the city. And it looks like that effect, like when in Terminator 2, when the bad Terminator keeps like melting into liquid glass. It looks kind of like that when he forces him through the glass. I'm going to keep saying Bill Murray, much like I did in Groundhog Day.
We always do this with Bill Murray. He's
Bill
just
Murray's
Bill Murray.
Like, don't make me look like a suicide, which feels like a really weird thing to yell at a ghost that's dangling you out of
it is kind of
glass, but whatever. When Lou Hayward enters as a ghost, and he is disintegrating. His skull, he's like ashes, basically. His skull has like a mouse living in it. Although they did at the beginning request a dormouse in this special episode of Christmas Carol. So the mouse lives in this dead guy's head, which, sure,
why not?
Yeah, he's just disgusting looking, and he freaks Frank out. Frank shoots him, because I guess we all have guns in our offices in the 1980s.
Strange.
And Lou Hayward drinks, I think it was like a vodka and tab, seems to be the theme of this movie.
Yeah. You
need a drink to watch this movie with, vodka and tab. Stoli vodka specifically.
Yeah, if tab still exists. Yes.
It doesn't. But the alcohol drains out of Lou's bullet holes. I thought that was a really cool effect too.
Yeah, I did too. And this scene is appropriately it's not scary, but it's
ridiculous. So
it's ridiculous, but it's still effective. Like, it's not so old school like earlier 80s movies where the effects are such where like kids might lose interest. It's fine. It actually is fine. It's effective.
Yeah. It's not that scary, but it's got the creeper factor of him looking decayed.
It is, yeah. And Bill Murray's freaking out. So it's great.
So then when the ghosts actually do show up, we obviously start with the ghost of Christmas Past. He's driving a taxi, and he can drive it into different years. You think it's the fair, but he's actually taking you back to 1955 rather than charging you $19.55. I actually like this character a lot. Dave Johansen, I'm probably butchering his name, forgive me. He was like a musician. He was a friend of Bill Murray's. I think for someone who's not professionally an actor, they're more of a musician. Like, he does a really good job with this. He comes across as edgy enough, but also he's got to do the whole sentimental, like, here we go to your whole past and you're gonna cry. And he's probably one of my favorite characters. And he also just has such this street tough kind of almost grimy, I don't know, well, New York City Taxi in the 1980s.
kid me thought that, oh, that must be just what all cabbies are like. I mean, he's chewing on a cigar. He's, driving wildly through traffic. I love that it's like a 1950s cab and they go back to 1955. So all that is really kind of effective. I think it's fun. He is, I think, one of the more memorable characters. Like if you ask me, what do you remember about this movie? This would be one of the moments that I remember. And the whole thing with Ghost of Christmas Past is fun. He's also an asshole, the ghost. Like, he walks through a door, so Bill Murray thinks he could walk through a door like a ghost, and he just hits his head, and then you just hear him laughing. So there's like the physical comedy that still kind of works. And then he's like, you're gonna cry when you see a mutta, and Bill Murray does, and so that still works. It does still kind of have the heart too.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just keep going back to the book because I love the book. The Ghost of Christmas Past in the book, and in most of the movie versions where they're really trying to stay true to the book, the Ghost of Christmas Past is like this creepy little childish looking, almost like a Benjamin Button character. And
I don't remember.
Scrooge is not comfortable, and the reader's not always comfortable with the Ghost of Christmas Past. Like, it's supposed to be unnerving and creepy. This guy I want to hang out with. Like,
totally.
I could go do shots with him at a bar. He seems fun.
Yeah, give me him and Smee from Hook. It'll be a good time.
Oh, God, that would be a good... I don't want to ride in his cab, though. He does seem like
Hells
a
no.
shitty driver.
Very shitty. Yeah.
All right. And then, we got to talk about Carol Kane as the Ghost of Christmas Present. Once again, comparing to the book, that's usually the ghost that wins Scrooge over, that he warms up and you can see his, cold heart melting. And she is the opposite of that. She is beating the crap out of him. Yeah, she's like bizarre, but it's Carol Kane, so it's fun.
It's totally fine. My son loved the violence of this character.
Yeah, she's very violent.
If folks don't remember, I mean, she's just kicking the crap out of Bill Murray, punching him, dragging him around. And what I like about it is that it wasn't too much physical comedy. It was there enough to be kind of funny.
Yeah.
But it was also there enough for younger kids to think it's kind of funny. And Carol Kane is so funny because she's just like, dee. She's so dainty. And then she's punching him in the face. It's great. Yeah.
So I read, didn't like all of that physical violence. And she actually did hurt Bill Murray. And so one of the takes, she was punching him in the face. She said something about like the wings when they get in his face, paper cutting his face or like hitting the eyes and stuff, not meaning to. She just had no control over the wings. And she kicked him in the face. She kicked him in the groin. It's not in the script from what I can see. She introduces the zerbirding that starts to go on in this movie, like when you blow on someone's stomach and it makes which we learned from the Cosby Show is called a zerbert. They just made that up.
I guess they did.
Then that starts to carry through, like when Frank comes around and is a better person, now he's zerberting people, and that's just such a weird thing to do to people.
So weird.
And it's not in the script at all, or not in that first version of the script. Like they're not getting that physically close. So I don't. She's just such a bizarre character, but I mean, don't we love some unhinged Carol Kane? She's great. Princess Bride, great in My Blue Heaven, great in The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. She's still around.
Her in that. She's still around. She's still a legend. This piece of the movie is the best in my mind. It's kind of the heart. I mean, Ghost of Christmas Past is also the heart too, because you see the relationship with Karen Allen. He cries when he sees his mother. You realize that he was just sitting in front of the TV the whole time for Ghost of Christmas Past. So there's heart there too. But for Ghost of Christmas Present, I think the movie does a good job of showing how far he's fallen from charming Bill Murray when he was with Karen Allen. So I think it does a good job of that. You're seeing Karen Allen and how he feels about her, and then he gets punched in the face. I mean, so there's a great mix there of like, they don't let it get too cheesy and heartwarming, because as soon as it edges on that, she like injures him, basically. She meaning like the Ghost of Christmas Present. I think that's funny. Isaac liked the violence, so thumbs up. Really, at this point.
Thumbs up for that kind of violence.
Yes.
There's a couple other characters in here who are sort of 80s spin-off of the Dickens novel. We have Alfred Woodard playing Grace Cooley, who is the Bob Cratchit character here. She's got her son Calvin, who, rather than being physically disabled, he is mute. She casually mentions her husband was murdered.
Yeah.
I feel like we didn't dwell on that enough. Like
Nope.
she
Just skipped right over it.
just, she's fine. I think she's great. She
Amazing.
is
Yeah.
putting up with so much from this guy.
So much. And I think as a kid, she's a character that's memorable enough. Like when she came back on screen the first time because I have seen this movie as an adult, but it's still been a while. The first time I rewatched it as an adult, she came on screen. I'm like, oh yeah, I love this character.
Yeah.
But even now as an older adult watching, I appreciate the character itself so much more. As a middle-aged person, I think you could relate to her. You're just trying to do the thing. You might have a shitty boss. You're trying to run home to whatever it is.
She's a working mom with a toxic boss.
She also has some great lines like that are fun. Her kids are like, when are we going to get a Christmas tree? And she's like, when they're free. And it's funny, you could relate to it as an adult. And her character does great things. Like she makes sure to give Frank's brother the more expensive gift, which hilariously is a VCR. So I definitely had to explain what a VCR is to my kids and why that would be a good gift.
Yeah. So also in that office, we have Elliot Loudermilk, played by Bobcat Goldthwait, who gets fired very quickly in this movie. And I love Bobcat Goldthwait, but this character goes off the rails way too fast.
Immediately an alcoholic. Yeah.
Yeah, loses his job. Immediately his wife and child leave him. He is on the street. He can't get enough alcohol. You see him donating pints of blood to get $20 to go buy more alcohol. And he shows up at the end. I think so. He's the equivalent of there's like a beggar in A Christmas Carol comes by and asks for money for A Christmas Carol, and like Scrooge tells him off, and then he comes back at the end. And, what day is it, sir? And does that whole thing. Being the bunny, if you've seen the Muppet Christmas Carol. This guy comes back with a assault rifle and
a little extreme.
Yeah, so we're watching this, and the timing on this was before they had caught the killer of the UHC executive, and Jeremy, my husband, who was watching this one with me, was like, this part of the plot's pretty rough in light of UHC. And I was like, yeah. There were not as many mass shootings back in the 1980s.
Yeah. We felt this way about Die Hard 2. When the terrorists come in with machine guns at a workplace, it does feel funny these days.
Yeah. We're in a very different gun culture.
And I'd say even for kids, because kids have to do like shooter drills at schools, which is very sad. So it's not enough to like be like, you can't watch this movie. Absolutely not. You could still watch this movie. But it's not funny. It doesn't hit the same funny notes as I think it must have in 1988.
Literal trigger warning, though. Trigger warning for people who haven't seen this in a while.
100%. If you were going to make this movie today, you would never do that.
You could not do that part.
No.
Yeah. I still like Bobcat Goldthwait. I didn't love the direction of that character rewatching it as an adult. Who else? John Glover is playing Bryce Cummings, who's brought in by the boss as a competitor. And
a competitor to Frank, to Bill Murray's character.
Excuse me. Yeah. I just love that in his introduction, he's like, well, as a lacrosse player. Like, wow, even in the 80s.
Even in the 80s, lacrosse players were douchebags.
Man. Yeah.
He's a perfect douchebag.
He's really good. He's like that coworker in Die Hard who's just
absolutely
the perfect douchebag.
Yes. The minute he came on screen, I'm like, this guy, he's like, I like the bureaucrat villains in these kinds of movies, and I think the toxic positivity of a coworker is like a close cousin to the bureaucrat villain, because you really want to hate him. You want him to lose.
They don't give you anything likable on this. You want him to, at the end, they have him tied up to a chair with like Christmas ribbons and...
Oh yeah, you want him to just get tortured. It's a recognizable thing for adults, sort of a backstabby frenemy kind of coworker. Bill Murray basically has a mental breakdown at a lunch with the big boss and this guy, Bryce, because he's about to basically, be seen by the ghost of Christmas past. So he starts hallucinating, and then he runs out of the restaurant and into the cab. And then afterwards, when Bryce sees him again, he's like, "Oh, we were so worried about you." And you know that he's full of shit.
Yeah.
And as an adult, you could recognize that kind of a person. And so that I found that to be funny as an adult. I don't think I would have picked up on that as a kid.
You get as a kid, though, that this somehow this is the bad guy. Even though Frank is the anti-hero, this is the real bad guy of the movie.
Yeah,
this guy Bryce.
This is the real villain. It's like he's the real villain, and I think Grace the assistant is the real hero.
Yeah. Grace and Karen Allen's Claire. The two of them are the heroes of this movie.
Yeah, I'd be okay with them going off into the sunset. That would work for me.
Yeah. Go do a Golden Girls thing, ladies.
Yes.
We keep talking about this, but
like no one is good enough for you.
Yeah. Frank's just going to run you into the ground. You too. Go. Be happy. I put it as a cameo, even though it's a character in this movie, but Robert Mitchum is in this playing Preston Rhinelander, the boss who hires Bryce, as a competitor to Frank.
What else has he been in?
I mean, he's just like one of those classic old-timey actors. Yeah. I know him from Friends of Eddie Coyle, which is this incredibly gritty black and white Boston movie.
Because he's familiar to me, but I couldn't
he's like a tough guy from the 60s and 70s. It's funny he's in this talking about how his cats and dogs would like targeted programming.
It is kind
of funny.
Then
when they cut to his house later, he's actually got programming and the cats are all sitting there watching it.
I know.
They put like a mouse thing on or something.
I love how he and his wife are like watching TV in like full black tie material.
Oh yeah, they are decked out in every scene. Just old money. Again, the Alec Baldwin character on 30 Rock. That time he's just walking around in a tux and they're like, "Are you going somewhere?" And he's like, "It's after 6. What am I, a farmer?" Like this character.
One of the best lines of all time for 30 Rock.
Absolutely dresses for dinner. Like he's got to be fancy all the time. It doesn't seem like the tough guy characters that he usually does, but I'm glad he's there. He's fun.
He's fun. Because this movie has that element of class warfare, you need this guy who has like a bathrobe that costs more than your house while he's drinking a martini. Yeah. You kind of need that.
Yeah. So then there's so many random cameos in this movie, and a lot of them were written into the script. Mary Lou Retton as Tiny Tim is in the actual script.
That's so funny.
I'm so glad she showed up. She's like doing backflips and stuff, but dressed as like an orphan. Or not an orphan, it's Tiny Tim, but...
For the parents out there, you're going to have to explain who she is to kids. You know, Simone Biles, but the 80s, I guess, is who she is.
They got Buddy Hackett playing Scrooge in this play within a play that they're doing, who we would later know from The Little Mermaid. He's the seagull in The Little Mermaid. Anne Ramsey shows up in the homeless shelter. She's that super creepy lady from Goonies, and she's Mama from the Train. Yeah. She just has like a special place in the Treat household. I think my mom found her so funny in Throw Mama from the Train that it was just like, I could be a mom like that if you push me too hard.
Or don't make me like Goonies.
Don't make me into Mama.
It's fun for adults to see these people pop in there because some of them you're familiar and you remember them. They're not in there long enough to make a huge impact, but they add nice, fun texture to watching this as a nostalgia watch.
Oh my God, yeah. We got Lee Majors, the $6 Million Man, and that was supposed to be Chuck Norris, who clearly passed on this. Paul Schaefer and Miles Davis are playing the street musicians that Bill Murray insults. You got the sense that like there was a joke in there as he walked by and told them they sucked, but like I didn't look closely enough to recognize it was Paul Schaefer and Miles Davis. Yeah, I didn't either. Like it was all phenomenal musicians there on a street corner just playing some Christmas carols. And then they cast all of the Murray brothers in this movie. So Bill Murray has 3 brothers. His youngest brother, John Murray, played Frank's brother, Jim. And then the other 2, I'm trying to think where they were peppered in. Like one, I think, was in the studio somewhere. I didn't dig deep enough in the trivia, but what random thoughts do you have about this movie? I have a few.
Yeah, let's start with you.
Just from the opening credits, there's music playing, there's captions, it's like dark and they're zooming in on a space. And I said, oh my God, or I wrote it down. This looks like and sounds like a Tim Burton movie. But actually, my brain was working correctly in that moment because it's a Danny Elfman score. and he didn't get credit for this, but yeah, that's Tim Burton's composer, Danny Elfman, did the score for.
Right, and he's appeared, we've done several. We've done Beetlejuice, we've done Nightmare Before Christmas, and
Big
Pee-wee.
Adventure, yeah.
Yeah,
Danny Elfman's all over this podcast.
He really is.
So welcome back, Danny.
Welcome. You're very prolific.
Yes. Sounds like a Tim Burton movie. Oh, this could have been a Tim Burton movie.
It actually could have been, because in the Tim Burton movie, the assistant murders Frank and she takes over. That's what I'm doing in my head. Yep.
Like it. All right.
Yeah.
Call us Hollywood. We have a remake of this.
We have a new remake, and if you're going to do it, you probably want to reverse the genders.
So this movie being a take on the Christmas Carol, it just automatically invites comparisons to all the other versions of A Christmas Carol that are out there. Like, one review I read of it was like, this is maybe like the 8th best version of A Christmas Carol.
What? Bullshit.
Someone else wrote that. So there's usually heartfelt versions of A Christmas Carol out there where, you know, you cry when Tiny Tim dies, and, you know.
I mean, there are comedic versions
gives you
now.
The feels. There's a 2022 movie called A Christmas Karen.
Oh my God.
And the tagline is, God help us, everyone.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Why have I never heard of this? I'm writing it down.
Came out during the pandemic. I don't know where that. I think I saw you can get it on Amazon. I don't know.
Karen.
Jeremy absolutely refused to watch this with me. But
I'm
curious, because it's not rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, whatever that's worth. But
all right, now I can't promise you. Weekend.
Yeah, it might be like the 9th best version of A Christmas Carol. I can't promise you it's any better than what we just watched.
I guess my only random thought is that it's a comedy as Dickens. I love the fact that it's a TV parody of the TV business. That just continues to be funny. And I always kind of think it's fun on screen to see a show within a show, you know, because they're trying to put on a live Christmas Carol. So there's something about that that's always fun to me. It's sort of like one of the things I like about Shakespeare in Love. It's I like seeing some of that stuff. So, and
it's used really comedically here too, because Frank just keeps crashing into the sets. You know, the ghost will drop him off at a random place, and he just comes bursting through a wall like the Kool-Aid Man.
Yeah, he keeps doing that. It stresses me out because I'm like, this is live television. They have to rehearse.
Oh my God, yeah. All right, we should talk about the things that suck or are cringy with this movie, as we do with every movie.
We do. I have I think your list is longer than mine.
We've named some of them, but yeah, trigger warning. There is kind of an office shooting at the end of this movie.
No one dies, though, so it's fine. Do they die? No.
The fact that I had to think about that's bad.
Yeah.
Another thing that's very 1980s and doesn't hold up to today's standards is inappropriate 1980s work environments and inappropriate 1980s office parties.
Oh my God. That scene was great. This was like in the Ghost of Christmas Past, where you see Bill Murray as like an intern kind of. Yeah.
It's that, but even just his present day. He goes over to one of those solid gold dancers and makes out with her under the mistletoe. Oh, yeah,
that was unnecessary.
Yeah, and Jeremy, my husband's comment at that point, he just turned to me and he said, mistletoe is always sexual harassment.
That's very funny.
You should not have mistletoe in an office place, but it inspires beyond Bill Murray just deciding he's going to make out with a solid gold dancer before giving a heartfelt speech about how he actually likes Claire. Which
I know that it didn't make any
weird.
sense.
Bill Murray just put that in there. That wasn't in the script. I think he used to just do stuff like that, and they thought, okay,
that was in Ghostbusters, and it bothered us in Ghostbusters too.
Yeah, it did.
They just start making out with the ghosts. It's weird.
But then it inspires. They're torturing the censor who's sitting on.
Oh, I love them
taping.
Torturing the standards and practice lady.
Yeah, so she just starts going and like making out under the mistletoe with the tied up douchebag.
Yeah,
and you can see he's very uncomfortable, but he's tied up and can't get out of it. It's just like a series of using mistletoe to just
harass people.
It's just icky.
Yeah. It's not in there enough that I thought it was that bad. But the earlier scene, though, of the holiday party from Ghost of Christmas Past, you see like some office floozy. I'm going to call her a floozy because I think it's an accurate description here.
That might have been her title in the credits. I can't recall.
Might have been. She is photocopying her ass and handing
it out.
Yeah. And so this is what's funny. First of all, like, I mean, did that ever happen at a party? If that did, I really want to know from listeners.
I feel like I heard about people when there was Xerox machines, because we don't really even use those anymore.
I mean, I remember even as
Do we still
recent
go to
as like 10 years ago.
offices?
I know when we used to go to offices.
There was this thing. It was a copier.
But they're scanners now, so you can't just like, shove your tits up to it and then all of a sudden like pictures of your tits come out. You'd have to like send a PDF to your computer and then print it.
And people
not
be
that
like
I've done this.
photoshopping that, putting
It sounds like I've
it.
done this.
Yeah.
I have not. But
Jess has this whole thing figured out. She's done this every year for the holidays.
The funny thing with watching with kids is that you have to be like, that is called a photocopier. And then you're like, and it's weird, yes, that someone is taking a photocopy of their butt. It doesn't make any sense to kids.
Yeah.
The only thing with the dancers that he makes out with is that they're supposed to be ridiculous. Like they're in, tiny little bikinis, like dancing around, and it's supposed to be racy. So in some ways they're making fun of that stuff.
Yeah. Although Solid Gold was a real TV show. And for some reason I remember it was on after the Muppets.
I did not
remember
that at all.
I don't think they were on the same channel, but something about Sunday night we used to watch the Muppet Show. And then we knew that Solid Gold was on, but we weren't allowed to watch it.
Oh, I did not even know that was a thing.
Yeah, the Solid Gold dancers are real people who were on that show dancing. It was like Soul Train, but like choreographed and apparently sluttier outfits.
They're pretty slutty outfits, but there's that funny line where like the censor woman, the standards and practice woman is like, this is not acceptable. And they're arguing over whether you could see their nipples. And Frank is like, you can't see the nipples. And he gestures at the crew and he's like, and they're really looking. And I think it's still a little funny.
Yeah. All right. So this is intentional. This movie is not supposed to give you the warm and fuzzies that a typical Christmas movie would be. But when I got to the end of this, it was just like, like there's certain movies when you finish them, you're just like, oh yeah, it's the Christmas season. Even Die Hard to some degree. It's just like, oh, that was fun and it feels like Christmas. Like something about the tone that they end this movie on is just kind of like, all right, it was a Bill Murray movie, but it doesn't feel Christmassy to me. I mean, I didn't grow up watching it as much as you did, so it could be that.
But they have the classic, the son, the assistant son who's mute. He speaks at the end, and Bill Murray picks him up, and it's like the mom is so happy he finally starts to speak. So there is some fuzzy in there.
Yeah, that part's charming, but I think it gets kind of drowned out by Bill Murray
just being insane.
Just going off script as he always does, but I feel like you lose the whole God bless us everyone. My takeaway from this movie was just, oh yeah, Bill Murray really went off script at the end there. That was weird.
Yeah, but I still think, it felt festive in our household in some ways. They still sort of get it, that it's supposed to be festive. And maybe it's my nostalgia talking. I was okay with it. And the fact that the kid talks, that sort of tempers Bill Murray being unhinged.
All right. Well, we always like to follow the things that suck or cringy discussions with things that are great. Did you catch the Trump Tower insult when they're down in the sewer? That had to be ad-libbed, although I haven't gone through that part of the
Wait, can you run the joke again? Because I forget how it went.
I think it's the ghost of Christmas Futures just jumping him from place to place to place. And he sees one of the men that he met and was joking around with at the homeless shelter where Claire works in this sewer. They're under the sewer grate. It's snowing and the guy's frozen to death. And Frank just suddenly appears there, but he's looking around at the sewer and goes, "Where are we? Trump Tower?"
I love that.
That seemed like an ad-libbed line, and that joke lives up.
100% lives up. And you know what, for kids too, I mean, depending on your household's political affiliations, my kids were almost confused as to like why a Trump joke would be in such an old movie.
Because Trump is that old. But we still are dealing with the enshittification, I believe is the current word, of everything around us just being lower quality. And even back in the 1980s, some of the architectural choices in some of those buildings were known to be sewer-like, I believe. So,
and it also goes with the theme of like 1980s movies depicting cities as total dumps. And
especially New York City, that
absolutely
hellscape in the 1980s.
Total hellscape. And the fact that there's a Trump joke that emphasizes the hellscape is amazing, even in present day.
Good sewer joke.
A good sewer joke in Trump, it never dies.
Yeah. Other things that are great, we've mentioned a lot of them, but really love them spoofing those TV promos for all those other Christmas shows that they're going to show on Christmas Eve before their live version of A
Yeah.
Christmas Carol. Do you remember when like NBC was going through a phase maybe 10 years ago of having live version of Peter Pan or a
Yes.
live version of, and just making such a big dramatic event out of the thing?
They were trying to save their business,
Yeah,
essentially.
that needed parodying.
Oh,
So this
yes.
just got there 20 years ahead of time.
It
But
definitely did. 30. Yeah.
so yeah, they're poking fun at the right parts of culture that need to be poked fun at.
Yeah. I'll just say in closing, for closing arguments, I don't know if you have one, but this is me trying to pitch it to listeners and to you, is that if you think that Dickens' work needed a little bit of comedy, then this movie is for you.
I would say that Charles Dickens is near perfect in everything he did, but that there is a whole genre of kind of anti-Christmas movies, and this is definitely up there. There's Christmas movies we grew up watching, and that just even hearing the opening of it kind of puts you in a mood or takes you to a place. This one doesn't do that for me because it's an anti-Christmas movie, and also we just didn't watch it as much as Just did.
Yeah, because it does it for me, because I do
Yeah,
associate it with watching it during Christmas break. And I guess anti-Christmas is just wrapped up as part of Christmas to me at this
yeah,
point. So I appreciate that. Maybe
yeah.
cynical middle-aged me kind of likes it even more now.
Yeah. I find that I'm most interested in the characters that do have that little bit of warm and fuzzy. I really like Claire. I really like Grace. I even like the Ghost of Christmas Past, the taxi driver.
You're saying you like all the characters who are not named Bill Murray, who are not played by Bill
No, and
Murray?
there's other, like I don't like the Elliot Loudermilk plot line with him
Yeah, that's
drinking
true.
himself into buying an assault rifle and showing up at an office place. So yeah, I'm very on the fence about this one. If that's not a closing
Uh-oh.
argument, that's just kind of where I am because it doesn't bring me to the same place that some of the other Christmas movies do. So I could be talked into either direction. I know that you're going to try to talk me into saying this lives up. I'm
I
not
mean, I didn't say
saying I
that, but
won't. Her face is saying it, people. You can't see her face right now, but she's
I mean, I do think nostalgia always plays a role, and I think that is clearly when one of us has seen a movie more than the other, that certainly plays a role. But I think for this, I don't think you're supposed to have too many warm and fuzzies. Although I still kind of get them. I still like the Claire plotline. I buy into their love story. I buy into the Tiny Tim modern character speaking. It still contains the elements. I even buy into Bill Murray becoming a better Bill Murray. Like, so there's still something warm and fuzzy to me about that I like and I find comforting. I don't like cheesy Christmas movies, so I think I prefer Scrooged and Die Hard as my Christmas movies of choice. That's just what I like. Except the exception is the greatest movie of all time, which is Why Am
It's a
I
Wonderful Life.
Right. And that's the greatest movie of all time. I will die on that hill. That gives me all the warm and fuzzies. Outside of that movie, I think I prefer the anti-Christmas movies.
Okay. Well, with that, we probably should go to ratings and then I'll
We
just
should.
impulsively decide if this
Ah,
lives up or
I'm
not.
on Tinder hooks. So if folks are new to us, so we are going to rate this 1 to 10, 1 being garbage, 10 being Princess Bride. We first rate it for how it lives up to us as adults, and then we do a rating for kids, how it would live up to kids today. So for adults, 1 to 10. And since you're on the fence, would you like me to go first?
Sure.
I put down 7 or an 8, and I'm going to pull the Amanda and
You
do a
can't do an or.
7.5.
What is it? All right.
Yeah,
Meet it
I know I
halfway.
can't do it or. So I'm going to say 7.5 because I think it's very solidly a good movie to me still. I still think it's fun to watch. It's not in that 8, 9, 10 category where you see something totally different. I still think there was enough in here as a middle-aged cynic that I found to relate about it. And perhaps because I've also worked in television, so I find that to be funny. So I'm giving it a 7.5.
All right. For adults, I'm going to give this a 6.
Okay, that's decent.
I think I would have been exactly on the fence, and I do appreciate skewering of Christmas. Like I am a
Yeah,
diehard
you're a
reader.
cynic.
Every year when the Hater's Guide to the Williams Sonoma Christmas catalog
Oh,
comes out,
the
like I
greatest.
love that Drew McGarry. So I'm gonna give this a 6 because I think it would have been a 5, but things like the Karen Allen character and a little bit of skewering of Christmas is rightfully deserved. So that's where I'm at.
Awesome. So that's Wait, can't do math. 13 and a
Well, it's
half.
because you put
No.
that half in there.
13 and a half. I had
It
to
is
fuck it up.
13 and a half.
Not a bad start. So now we're going to do the same ranking 1 to 10 for Does It Live Up for kids today. I did watch it with my kids.
Can you talk a little bit more about your kids' reactions to it also?
Yeah.
And I know they've seen other movies that we reviewed for the holidays on this podcast, but they weren't all good necessarily.
No, they were not. They sometimes get annoyed when we watch these older movies, but they did like Groundhog Day. My daughter and I even saw the new Ghostbusters movie in the theater, so she kind of knows who Bill Murray is, or at least he's just some old actor that she's seen around. So they've watched it. I think it resonated more with my son, who's 7. My daughter's 12. But they were in. They liked it. My son even said, even for different parts for Ghost of Christmas Past, when Bill Murray starts getting emotional, or maybe it was Christmas Present, he's like, oh, it's working. Like, he kind of gets the plot.
Okay.
And he even told me the other day that he used this term. I recommended Scrooged to a friend. And I looked at him and I was like, it was like a week after we'd seen the movie. And I was like, what? You recommended a Scrooge? What are you talking about? And then I realized he was talking about this movie.
That's cute.
I don't know what 7-year-olds talk about on the playground, but I guess
Apparently,
this came
Bill
up.
Murray movies from 1988. What did Lily, because Lily sometimes flags things that are outdated. Did she have any reaction to this?
I mean, I think it's really hard now because she's 12, so she's not going to give me much.
Nothing's cool enough.
Nothing's cool. I think she thought this was okay. So she was certainly laughing at some of the parts that are fun, like Ghost of Christmas Present, where she's like kicking the shit out of Bill Murray, because that's still objectively funny. I think for younger audiences, not just my daughter, but even young adults, you need a little bit more to root for the love story. You need a little bit more of a win over. The whole trope of a woman having a project man to love is not, you need something a little bit more, I think, for younger audiences.
Claire, you don't have to save that broken bird. You and Grace just go get a 2-bedroom condo by the ocean somewhere.
100%.
Golden girl this situation.
Do it. Start a company. I don't know. So, in some ways, I think it's like a mixed bag for kids. But they were in. Like, there are certain movies where they are not. And there are certain movies where they absolutely love, like Addams Family is one that they love, that we've reviewed on this podcast. Die Hard is one that at least my daughter loves. So for me, for kids, I gave it as high as a 6 because I do think it's above average. There's not too many old-timey references. Yes, you have to explain what a VCR is and who Mary Lou Retton is, but they kind of get it. So that's why I give it a 6. I think it is above average.
All right. With that in mind, and I'm cheating and looking at some of my other scores.
Love it when you cheat.
When I watched it, I was like, this is a 5 for kids. I'm debating giving it a 5.5, but I also gave Spaceballs a 5.5, and that seems a lot more kid-friendly. Yeah.
Oh.
I'm going to hold at a 5. This brings us to 24.5, which is like right on our line of whether it lives up or not. I know which way you're going. So
yeah,
I could tank this if I want.
Regardless of the score, we give a yay or nay, each of us, of whether we think this lives up. And we both have to agree to have the podcast officially say this lives up. And we have had split decisions. Amanda's broken my heart. I've broken her heart. She made me tank Spaceballs last time, which I do not regret. But I think this lives up. So I'm giving it a solid lives up. It's well above average. I found a little bit more to laugh and giggle at as an adult. Despite some of the cringy things we mentioned, it's fine to watch it with your kids. Maybe not like super young, but it's fine to watch it with your kids. So to me, this lives up, and I'm going to cross my fingers and see what you think.
All right, listeners, this is what I felt after I finished watching it. I was like, this barely lives up, and I had been, drinking. I was not drinking Tab and Stoli vodka, but, drinking some wine or something. It lives up to my memory of it. I'll give Karen Allen pushes it over the top for me. She's just so awesome and everything. But as I've been like sitting with this the past few days and letting it like percolate, I'm really questioning my decision. So I will let drunk me who had just finished watching this say it barely barely lives up.
Barely lives up.
Barely lives up. So, Jess, that's your holiday gift from me this year.
Oh, thanks so much.
I'm giving you a barely on Scrooge. my Scrooge like heart is barely melting here. I don't know.
Congratulations to Scrooged. You officially live up from the Live Up podcast. Even if it's a barely, that still counts.
I don't want to watch it again immediately, but I do think I would watch this again down the line. So
yes, because it's a classic.
Look at the lack of enthusiasm coming out of me here. Like,
don't listen to her, listeners. Go watch it. Whether you agree, disagree, let us know what you think at Live Up Pod on all the socials. Would love to hear your memories of it, whether you've seen it with your kids, whether it barely lives up to you or the other way around. Let us know.
And happy holidays to all.